Well folks, welcome back to the workshop. Today we have a wee Hikoki drill on for repair from a Tabo HTP. This is the DV18DBFL2 from 2019. I don't get too many Hikoki drills on here. They are quite a decent wee machine, but just wouldn't get them around here very often. This one ain't healthy. High speed's working, and the chuck's working, so it's forward and reverse. It's just the change lever. It's a little bit spongy, don't know if it's meant to be like that or not, but it's not going on to low gear. It's clicking back out again, and even if you hold it on, not engaging. So we have a gearbox issue. Luckily for Hikoki, that ain't that big a deal. Unlike a lot of brands where the gearbox is sold as one piece, the likes of Makita, Bosch, Milwaukee, you can't buy parts inside, you can only buy the whole gearbox. The likes of Hikoki and DeWalt are different. You can buy all the parts inside of the gearbox, so if you get a problem like this, like a stripped out gear, you can fix it no problem, and for quite cheap. So let's see if we can fix this one up. One more. Inside we have a nice wee brushless motor, switch, controller, battery retainer. So these here will be one piece along the stator, but the switch and rotor and all will be separate. The main advantage is inside the gearbox. Pull that out. Actually quite tidy inside as well. It's not all that dirty. Don't need this end. You just need this. So we'll need to strip this down to get inside to replace this here housing. But first off, just give it a quick wee clean. Stop any dirt from getting inside. So that's our clean. So the only part we should need to replace is hopefully the gearbox housing. This here is the part that normally fails, so hopefully this is all I need to change. Luckily with Hikoki, they ain't all that expensive. €8 will buy you this little part. And that's the part number there, if you ever need to order one. 370601. Actually keep a few of these in stock, just in case, because this does happen quite often with just about every brand, and they're fairly cheap from Hikoki. So, show you why this happens, and how to actually change it. And the first thing you need to do, just remove this little change lever for your selecting for your gear selector. Two wee screws hold it on, and just prise up the actual arm and lift it out of the way. That's hooking on until you have a little gear on here. So there's actually little legs either side. Now to open the gearbox, I'm going to take off this here cover. We don't want to go on back here to the actual clutch assembly and all that there. We only want to go to this top half. Back here we don't need to touch. So get on this side, we first have to take off this plastic cover. And that should just twist off. Give it a twist to one side and lift it up. So you can take off these 4 screws. Just pull off the whole gearbox housing, but you're still going to have to reassemble all these parts. So as well, just take them out individually. This way, so as you can see how they go on and how they go back together. Take this metal plate off first. This actually twists in. It's locked in up here. So if to untwist it, lift it out. The gear just lifts out. You have 4 very skinny little gears. And you have this big gear on top. Again, another selection of gears. These are thicker ones. These are all different sizes too, so you can't get this wrong. They only go together in a certain way. And this here is your selector. This is what goes back and forth whenever you change your gear selector at the top. So it goes forward and locks into low speed, or it goes back and is unlocked and able to spin around. So what actually happens is eventually this plastic housing wears out. This metal selector gear can sometimes chew up this plastic housing. So take that off, leave the rest. So what happens is this metal ring gear here, this locks up to select one of the gears. So to select one gear, this has to be stationary. When it's not stationary and able to spin, that gives you your second gear. To lock it, it actually locks into the plastic housing here. There's little teeth down the bottom of it. So whenever it's pushed forward, it locks this gear in position. But if you're overusing the drill and you're putting it under heavy load, using a lot of torque, you can start to strip out these here plastic teeth. Or if you're not selecting it right to begin with, if you're putting it in between gears, or if you're running the drill whenever you're changing gears, eventually this here will start grinding down the gear teeth. No one is more common than the other. Both of them can actually do it. Sometimes it can be a combination of all, but generally it mainly boils from actually overusing the drill, putting way too much torque in, and not selecting the actual gear properly, causes this here to strip out. When that happens, you have to replace the plastic gearbox housing. Whenever you go into some of the bigger drills then, this would be a smaller one, you'd actually have a metal plate on this as well. You'll have a plastic gearbox housing and then a metal lock plate as well for locking this here gear. That's on the bigger ones, but for this one it's just a plastic gear housing. So to fix it, we need to replace that. We'll also just wash out a few of these pieces as well, in case there's any wee bits of plastic in it, because this will be glass fibre reinforced plastic. So we'll give these a quick wee wash and we'll reassemble. So, we've been cleaned up. All we need to do is rebuild it with the new plastic housing. You can see how them teeth have worn away when you compare it to the new one. That's what it's meant to look like, and that's what's left of the old one. Now there's a top and a bottom to this. So whenever this goes on, you're going to have gear selector lever on top. So the screws need to be on top as well. So it needs to go on that way there. The screw at the top, the lever at the bottom. Four screws, reattaches it. Get a little bit of grease down on here, not much. Don't be tempted to put too much grease into these things, but if you put in too much, it's just going to make a mess. When this is running, this grease is going to heat up, liquefy, and it's going to start seeping out through the holes here, or worse, through the back where the motor goes into it. When it starts coming out through here, you're just going to coat the inside of your motor, get everything covered in grease. So these only take a little bit of grease. You don't really need a pea-size amount. Now before you put anything else on, get your locking gear on first. It just pushes down on. Then your four thicker gears going to the bottom. Spray that on top. This gear on top of that again. Just put a little bit of grease in them pins. Then your four skinny gears at the end. I know that doesn't look like an awful lot of grease, but that there's fine. That's all it needs. Top then, your metal plate, twist that into place. Then your top cover then. It can only go on one way. The big lugs fit into here. It twists on the same as that metal washer, metal plate underneath. Just give it a twist. As you can see, it's not on enough, it's not symmetrical. This can be tight. If it's tight, you might have to just persuade it. Twist it around fully until it's actually symmetrical and in line with the screw holes underneath. So that's the gearbox housing changed. All you need to do then, reinstall your selector. The little feet here drop onto the selector gear. See the wee channel in the middle of it? You have to go onto that. Put one in, slide this over the top, and drop on the other one. If you don't get it onto that selector gear, you're not going to be able to change gears. That's it. One gear housing changed, and a Hikoki drill. The last thing then is the actual slide plate for selecting your gears. This is what goes on top and slides back and forth. And on the side of it, these little plastic pins. So they actually locate onto the housing here, and that's what actually locks your selector in place. So if you find yourself got a weak selector and it's not really locking on correctly to keep the gear in place, it could just be this here. Because this is only plastic, these start to deform and stick in. So what you can do, if you like, is just heat up the plastic and bend this out a wee bit. All you need to do is get a lighter, or I might use a blowtorch, and just heat up the plastic. Just a little bit, don't burn it. Just warm it up. Take a little screwdriver and lift that up. Let it sit there then until it cools down. Then when it's cooled down enough, when you remove it, it'll actually be sticking up a little bit higher and have more of a spring to it compared to the one underneath, which is actually compressed in. So if you do that, it'll actually lock into position a wee bit better, give you a better hold, so it's less likely to strip this out. Or you can just replace this as well. Now with that a little bit tighter, you just reinstall the gearbox. Lift your motor up, install it onto the armature. You'd have to just give it a little bit of a wiggle and push. Drop your selector arm on top and drop the whole lot in together. And that should be it. Now one of the other advantages of these Hikokis is the switch. If this happens to break on you and stop working, you can actually replace that on its own instead of replacing it with the whole electronic module. And just also make sure your forward reverse selector is actually engaged correctly. That can always be a sticking point. Put the thing back together again. This here doesn't move. Make sure that's right. If it's right, go ahead and stick the other half of the body together. The other half of the clamshell. And that should hopefully be it. One Hikoki drill, DV18 DBFL2 with both gears now engaging. So we got high speed and low speed. That's her. That's how you fix your Hikoki. If you strip out one of the gears, just replace the plastic gearbox housing. I know it looks complicated, but it ain't all that difficult to do. Take your time and it's quite easy. Just make sure you work in a nice clean work area, so if you drop anything you'll be able to find it again. But that's her. That's the advantage of buying Hikoki tools, especially the drills and impactors. You can buy everything for inside of the gearbox. Unlike you can buy everything inside of the gearbox and even the switch on its own, just like the Makita. But unlike the Makita, you can buy everything inside of the gearbox on its own, unlike the Makita, Bosch and Milwaukee's. But just like the Makita, you can buy the switch separately, even though it's a brushless motor. So if this gives you bother, you can still replace it. That's one of the advantages of Hikoki tools. That's what I find anyway. The Makita's, the way you can't buy the parts in the gearbox, is one of Makita's biggest letdowns. That's what I find anyway. That's why I don't like them all that much. Good tools, but if anything goes wrong in the gearbox, you're scuppered. You can never go wrong with a brand that actually keeps you covered well into the future, even if anything goes wrong inside of a gearbox. But that's her, up and running again. Anyway folks, that's it. As always, give us a wee like and a follow down below if you're liking the content. And if you want to help out the channel, you can also hit that share and subscribe button too. If there's any questions, drop a wee comment down in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Cheers.